Again, I think there was a lot of professional fees, legal costs, et cetera, that were incurred well before this corporation was actually set up. So that was charged through. So that's the 1.3 million. The rest of the expenses, 2022 had large legal and professional fees again, continuing to get it set up and look at the structure, et cetera. So there's about $610,000 there. That would also include things like accountant, audit fees as well. Although the bulk is, I think, legal. Salaries also the second largest line item, 110,000 in 2022, up to 210 or just under 210 in 2023. And the third largest item is interest, so interest on the loan from the nation. So overall, we have a loss, a larger loss in 2022, 2.2 million, again, largely driven from those reincorporation costs that were charged back to this company. And the loss shrunk on a year-over-year basis to just over 800,000 in 2023. Next page. This is just summarizing the continuity of your losses year over year and showing how it built into that accumulated deficit of $3 million. Following page, statement of cash flows. Typically don't spend a whole lot of time on this, but effectively it's showing your how your net income or your net loss in this case across your operating activities and your financing activities contributes to your opening and ending cash balances. So operating activities, obviously, like you mentioned, is sort of incurring a cash loss at this point from operations, but that loss is being covered by from a loan from the nation. So you can see the cash injection, 2.2 million in 2022, and about just over 700,000 in 2023. The rest of the notes, the rest of the pages are note disclosures. So there's a lot of wording in here as this has to fall under a form of generally accepted accounting principles. So there's lots of generic wording there. I won't read all of them, but again, I'll just maybe highlight a few. Note 2 on page 5 of this financial statement has that going concern note we talked about. So again, just emphasizing that since we do have negative working capital, accumulated deficit, operating loss, we have to emphasize that there is that going concern uncertainty, in which case, the next 12 months, there's expected to be support from the nation, the community, to continue to help sustain, give them the cash flow to sustain operations. And again, that would be common in any sort of startup nature where there's not history of profitability, so not just unique to the Cannabis Commission. I'll flip over to a few more pages, tell you which note I'm going to. Note 7 on page 9. Give 1 second to flip there. Note 7 is the related party transaction. So this is the activity between Six Nations Cannabis Commission and Six Nations of the Grand River. So we have to disclose all sort of related party activity. So that's what this note is sort of emphasizing. So it's emphasizing that there's an administration fee that's charged from community back to the Cannabis Commission. About 39,000 of expenses were incurred related to that in 2023, 34,000 in 2022. Some related party rent, $3,000. One of the larger ones is the interest on the loan, being charged at bank prime plus 1%, which totaled to $161,000 in 2023, $45,000 in 2022. And if we go down, the bigger one here is pre-incorporation expenses, like we already talked about. 1.3 million was charged in 2022, at the start of the incorporation. So there's a table here just kind of showing all the fees and reconciling your opening loan balance, what's drove the loan balance is upward, and any repayments as well. I think that's what I wanted to draw attention to on the financial statement side. Any questions? That I went pretty quick there. First time going through these.
Sorry.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments so far? Yep, go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, thanks for coming in and reviewing that with us. I just had the pre-incorporation expenses that was just a one-time thing, right? And that would bring it right up. So they would be eliminated, so there would be no more pre-incorporation expenses carried.
Yes, that's my understanding, and I think the intention there was because there was no corporate entity to put the expenses in until it was set up, fees that sort of indirectly relate. Now I know there's that idea of, well, it's kind of putting them in the hole, so to speak, at the start, and it builds up that loan balance, right, and that interest. So it's sort of a difficult, I think, situation to get started on. But nonetheless, you're right. That's one time. The corporation's set up now. It's operational. We shouldn't be seeing any of those down the road.
Thanks.
Any other questions or comments? Yeah, go ahead, Helen.
So are we can ask questions on the money part? Is that what we're doing? I just questioned the legal fees. What you have, your report, what the legal fee be?
That was all the legal work that they did to create the law and regulations. That's my understanding.
To get the what?
To create the Six Nations cannabis law and regulations.
Oh. And the salaries? How many people are working there?
Right now, there will be 3 people.
Three people that are getting salaries? So they're staff people, they're not board members?
They're staff people. We get salary benefits, same as any other salaried employee in council.
Okay, oh, go ahead, Cynthia.
And just the, bad debts,
So I think if I recall, going a bit off memory, there was one of the early licenses that were provided for, I think in 2022. Effectively, they I can't remember if it was, they had an installment plan, but regardless, they were unable to make that payment in 2023. It was deemed uncollectible, so it was charged. But it was one customer, one business, $26,000. I don't recall the name of the business. I don't know if you can.
Yeah. They're working at paying that back and supposed to start later this month. We made arrangements since that.
I think if it did get recollected, that would come into income, I think, in fiscal 2024. But I think we call it the measurement date at the end of fiscal 2023, we deemed there wasn't enough evidence to support it being collectible, so charged the bad debt. But like you said, if they do actually show efforts and an ability to repay, that can come right back into income when the payments are made.
Elena, then Audrey, and then continue.
What makes up the accounts payable, 28,333?
The majority of that might be 25,000. The majority of that would be the 2022 and 2023 audit fee. We did an audit over 2022 and 2023, but we weren't engaged till after fiscal 2023 started. So it's accrual accounting is part of that's being shown in 2022. So I think that's the 10,000 you see in the comparative. And then I think there's additional 15,000 for 2023, more activity. So add those 2 years, none of the invoices were paid until fiscal 2024. And then there's probably some small, I can't remember what the other small nuance vendors are.
Audrey?
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to know, if I could get a list, Kathy, of all the, businesses who are working with, the Cannabis Commission, and a list of all the ones who have yet to sign.
Yeah, I can provide that to you.
You know,
Okay, continue. Melba?
Yeah, mine is related to Audrey's question. How many licenses have been issued to individuals and how many to businesses? Thanks.
Right now, the individuals and businesses are one and the same, so they have to be majority owner, has to be 6 station span member. And as of today, we have 9 retailers and 7 producers, and 1 cultivator, and we have more coming next week.
Thanks, Kathy.
Okay, go ahead. Oh, Hazel?
Kathy, I just wanna ask with regard to, the money situation that you, can't deposit any monies, et cetera. Do you have a bank account for like accounts payable, and is it all cash transactions? Oh my goodness.
Okay,
I'll speak to what I recall the structure. I think definitely as of the date of this audit report, there was no separate bank account set up. I think there's some regulations around that. So the historical structure has been the money ultimately flows into the Grand River Bank account, and then it hits the due to from the due to related party line item. So effectively, if we got cash, we being Cannabis Commission got cash, there was a control process to make sure that there was a receipt issued, and that cash ultimately flows over to the Grand River to deposit it in the amount. So there is extra layers there, but that's unfortunately I think been the challenge to date. I don't know if you can speak to it. Is that still the case, Kathy?
It is. And it continues to be the case, and that's what I brought up several times, that we need a bank account, we need that political advocacy in order to get that bank account.
okay, continue.
Okay, so there's 2 other documents in the package today. Maybe I'll just quickly speak to what's called the audit findings, which is this document for everyone here. So the audit findings, again, for 2023 and 2022, we did a 2-year audit since incorporation. It just highlights some key items we're required to communicate to the council and commissioners on the audit process. So again, I won't read everything, everyone has it there, but flipping over to the first page, there's a lot here, the independent audit report. So again, we plan to issue an unqualified audit report. Could be April 15, 2024, if it's approved today. Again, that's good news in the sense of there's no qualification. It means the financial statements can be considered accurate representation. The following page has audit reporting matters at the top. And there's a table there called significant audit accounting and reporting matters. Final materiality. So materiality is a concept we use to guide where we focus our effort. So just communicating that we use 32,000 for both fiscal years that we audited. It's a percentage of total expenses. And again, it doesn't mean we don't look at things under 30,000. It just means we use that as a determination of where we focus our attention to on the highest risk areas. Again, we use highest risk areas. The audit theories mean that we're concerned per se of any particular transaction. Happy to report no identified or suspected fraud as a result of our procedures. And then if we flip over, there's the going concern highlighted again. We already talked quite a bit about that. We want to speak quickly on page 4, significant risk areas and responses. So auditors have to determine which are the highest risk areas in an audit. And again, it's just communicating that to you again. Doesn't necessarily mean there's anything concerning, but again, just quickly rapidly go through those risks of management override of their own control. So this is something that's in effectively all audits because management does have that ability to run the operation. They theoretically also have the unique position to influence accounting entries. So we pay specific attention to manual journal entries if we're moving something between one account and another, and we want to make sure we get the source documentation and the approval process for that. So happy to note that. And again, we actually use computer software to scan all the entries and help us pick out the riskier items. So it's not just human error or human judgment. But that being said, we're happy with all the entries made. No concerns there. We did have The second one there was to do 2 Six Nations of the Grand River loan. Again, just because there's so much movement between that loan account, because like we said, the bank account is effectively Six Nations Grand River. There's a lot of volume there, so we spend a lot of time making sure we have all the transactions, but again, no concerns there. And we talked about going concern being a risk as well. So that's all I'll say on the audit findings, unless there's any questions, so we can get to the management letter.
Any questions? No, you can continue.
Thank you. Okay, so the final document, it's called the management letter. It's this one. So this again for so maybe I'll just give a little introduction. I'm sure people have seen potentially management letters before, but I just want to give a quick overview of what they are, why they exist, etc. So effectively a management letter exists to communicate to management best practices. If there's a control deficiency or potential control deficiency, our obligation as part of the audit process is to communicate what could be better as part of the audit process. Again, doesn't mean you have to implement it. We're just required to communicate it. Sometimes it doesn't make sense to implement controls because you're a small operation. If you add a layer and a control and a sign off for every operation, you're not gonna be able to do your business, and you're gonna spend so much time checking everyone's work that you're not actually gonna do what you're supposed to be doing, which is maybe growing the business and helping the community with various needs. So that's the introduction. Again, even if we know there was an improvement during the year or after year end, we have to communicate it as part of the audit process. So there's quite a few here. Again, I also want to respect everyone's time, but I also want to make sure I just give the high level theme here. So financial reporting. This first one is really when you have a quarterly reporting package, go to your commissioners, your board of directors, your council, and have evidence of that discussion happening. So we didn't see evidence of those happening. I think we know that there is some ongoing discussions, but again, best practice would be that the financial reporting package is completed, prepared, and there's meeting minutes to summarize that the discussion of the financial performance that's happened. And that just helps encourage accountability and making sure everyone's tracking towards the budgeted plan. So again, not that uncommon for an early days entity, but nonetheless, just wanted to share that as well. Approval of manual journal entries. I think I maybe hinted at that a little bit. So when we talked about how accountants and management can book accounting entries and reallocate items between accounts, again, that's a normal process. But when that happens, the best practice is to have a formal approval and sign-off process, just to make sure things aren't done in error or for malicious reasons, whatever it may be, that we want to move something between an account because whatever the reason is, we're trying to do something what we should be doing. Because that is, we call it a fraud risk. The best practice is to have an approval of those manual entries. How that looks can be completely up to everyone. Again, this is probably the most common management letter point I see in practice. Again, we didn't find anything wrong, but sometimes there's the accounting software itself can have a secondary approval go in whenever an entry is made. It forces the second person to click there and click their initials and sign off. Other processes is at the end of each month, at the end of each quarter, an accounting ledger can be run, and a second person can review it and put their initials beside it and say, okay, yep, I agree with those entries, it all makes sense. So just a best practice there. Next page, employment contracts. This is more of a legacy issue. I think this in 2022's audit that we looked through, the 2 employment contracts didn't have the formal employee signature on it. Again, we were able to get audit evidence alternatively, and I think the ones that were signed in 2023 had no issues. There is that practice in place, but again, just communicating that there was some older issues there that have been rectified thereafter. Again, you'll see that theme throughout here. There has been a lot of improvement in fiscal 2023, and definitely we have indications of fiscal 2024 that most of these have been, there has been good progress. So just want to emphasize that as well. But just once again, right, we did a 2022 and a 2023 audit, so we have to report on anything we saw throughout that process. Documentation for cash transactions. This is what we spoke about briefly earlier, where because we don't have a bank account at Six Nations Cannabis Commission, all of the money has to make its way. When someone pays for a license application fee, person, there has to be a control to move that cash over to Six Nations Grand River bank account, because there isn't a separate bank account, so, you know, makes it a little bit more tricky for us to audit, but, you know, again, happy to report that, you know, we did see that process go through all the way up and make its way to the bank account. And because of that, there's been some unique controls implemented to kind of paper the receipts and the tracking to make sure everyone's, you know, accountable along the way. This deficiency here is noted that there was a couple in 2022 that didn't have all those checks and balances. So I do want to emphasize that we do see that the money did make its way into the bank account, so not concerned that something was misappropriated, but there was supposed to be a process whereby there's you know, receipts issued to the applicants when they pay their application fee, and then when the money moves over to finance, they get a receipt as well. And then when the money moves from Six Nations Cannabis Finance to Six Nations Grand River Custodian to deposit in the bank account, there's another receipt. So there's a couple early samples in 2022 where that triple check processes was documented and filed. Again, in 2023 we didn't see any issues, so we think that has been flowing through appropriately. And again, all the license application fees we saw did actually have money hit the bank account, so we know it did make its way there. But again, just emphasizing, in 2022 there was some documentation of the receipts that were missing, so just highlighting that as well. Obviously, if there was a way to get a dedicated bank account, I think, you know, a lot of this would be easier. The audit process would honestly be a lot more efficient as well. But again, I know we're sort of working in a challenging regulatory environment on that side. Just a couple more here. Following page, top says retention of revenue documentation. Again, in 2022, there was a few revenue application documents that were not retained, so it's a little bit, you know, of just emphasizing the importance of ensuring everything's retained in the file and ready for the auditors to investigate it. Again, I think there were smaller ones. Again, we did have, you know, enough information to get comfortable with the balances that were recognized in revenue and the application. So not a big concern there, but just emphasize or highlighting this. The second one here, formalization of related party reconciliations. This is just because there's so much reliance on the signation of the Grand River bank account. We're emphasizing that there should be a detailed accounting check processes reconciling the two called inter-organization loan accounts, and having a formal sign off to make sure it does reconcile that, you know, someone at Six Nations Commission is content that the related party loan balance agrees with the Six Nations of the Grand River loan balance, so that those two jive and both people are reviewing it and signing off on it, so they're comfortable. And I get why that check hasn't been formally signed off in the past, but again, just because it's so important, I think, to making sure all your transactions are captured, you know, it would make sense to have a detailed check there. And the last one, on the last page, cannabis license, source documentation, and best practices. So this comes back to ensuring that the licenses that are granted have all the key information on it, and there's a good process. And I for the license application, matching the application to the actual license that's issued, and having, you know, the individuals, the business names, the term of the license, the date of the license being issued, and when it expires. So all that sort of stuff is something we saw some inconsistencies throughout 2022 and 2023. I think in 2023 and beyond, we're seeing some improvements there in terms of just having everything nicely matched, everything ready and packaged in a file. I think just, you know, when it was a newer organization, there was a lot of you know, inconsistent approaches in terms of how things were stored and retained in files. So, you know, when we come in as auditors and ask for your license applications and the certificate of license being issued, you know, sometimes it wasn't as easy as we thought it should be. But again, I can appreciate it was early phase in 2022, just as sort of incorporation, et cetera. But again, just highlighting it's important to have that one-to-one match of, and again, for accountability too, right? The application, the license, the term of the license, that all feeds into the accounting when you recognize revenue and all that good exciting accounting stuff. So, but again, I think that we did see trend older information, but nonetheless, it's still important to highlight. So I'll stop there. I know I spoke really quickly. I know it's the first time I've been here, so I know everyone comes from different backgrounds and we have different nuanced questions. So happy to answer them.
Is there any questions? Go ahead.
Yeah. Overall, I think you've been working with Kathy to rectify a lot of those internal control issues, right? That's correct?
Yep, that's correct. So I think we've met, I think it was maybe November, we met with the commission, give or take, so we've sort of communicated. I think some of those, truthfully, I think some of them have already been resolved just by virtue of, I know Kathy's a little bit newer to the organization, so a lot of these points are fiscal 2022. So I think some of them were organically already shifting as they grow, and Kathy has sort of implemented some processes. Maybe not all of them, there's some that are segregation of duties when you only have 2 or 3 people, it might not be all those sort of key sign-offs, but I think nonetheless, I think you do have a copy of our management letter, and I think, we can chat further on which one makes sense.
I just have one other question too. As your firm, do you audit other cannabis organizations that are businesses that are off the reserve?
We're actually, since 2018 and when cannabis became legalized, we're one of the largest cannabis auditors across Canada. Not specifically Indigenous, but there's lots of go public entities and not privately owned cannabis growers, cultivators, that sort of thing. I've worked on quite a few of those over the years. But I would say this is the first in terms of call it administration oversight body on reserve that I work with.
And just follow up, Chief. In overall, in comparison, that this cannabis, the organization on reserve, in your opinion, it's pretty much well run.
Yeah, I think because, like I said, we haven't done audits of this in the past, but I think, understanding what the purpose of it is, I think it makes a lot of sense. It sounds like, this is an important thing. We're trying to make sure we're providing that proper oversight for our community members on reserve. I think, all the key ingredients are there. Obviously, you look at the financials, and I think there's going to be continued financial support. This is, again, remains to be a priority, but I think the right people that actually want to do a good job at the helm.
Thank you.
Dale?
My question is similar to Greg's, and I guess my thing is that with all the concerns you raised, they've been addressed, so is there a proper documentation, I guess, that's going forward, is all in place in relation to the concerns that you addressed?
I think most of them are addressed. I think the big one is that bank account issue. I think that would be important operationally. On the audit side, I think we spend a lot of time having to do that extra tracing it through. So, if I think about, doing an efficient audit, right, if there was a solution there, it would actually help our audit fees be more economical. Obviously, we sort of charge on a timely basis, right? So the less we can do is the better. But I know there's been, this isn't a new issue. I know it's something that is important, but I don't know if there's any other potential solutions there in terms of, in Grand River, have a dedicated bank account where only, again, I don't know if that's a gray area or something to approach, but again, I think that would be the one I think is going to stay on there. So say if there's a fiscal 2024 audit, and that's probably to me the biggest one. The manual journal entry review sign off one, I don't know if that's been addressed. Again, I shouldn't say it's not important, but I would say almost all organizations I work with that have less than 10 employees are going to have that. And that's just because you have one person doing the accounting, are you always going to have that second check? But, at the same time, I would say, is it that hard to have someone review the journal entry printout at the end of each month or quarter to make sure they all look like they're making sense and there's not anything unusual there? So it's not a hard check to add, but I think those would be the two I think are probably the ones I would think are going to stay on for fiscal 2024.
Okay, so can we move to the 2024-25 budget?
Have it in front of you? Everybody has it? in front of you in your Dropbox, and it outlines 2024, 2023, 2024, and 2025, and how the comments listed will tell you what our goal is. I'm happy and proud to say that we're moving quite quickly on our retail, manufacturing, cultivation, and gaining more people on board with the Six Nations Cannabis Commission, so we're on the right track. The salaries remain similar to what they have been in previous years. There's not enough hours in the day for my staff now, and so we're looking, we just got approval from PATE to have another person on board for a short time period, a summer student, and we've asked for another position as well. Everything else is in line with the operational costs. We looked at our previous year and then added on. I worked quite closely with Jennifer in creating this to make sure that we're clear, because last year was the first year that we did a budget. So we didn't know where we're at. This year is much better, and you can see that by our budget. The same with administrative expenses. We'll know as we move on. We're only going to get better with this, but here's the budget before you. Any questions?
Go ahead, Dale.
Yeah, just looking at some of your line items there, you got commissioner admin fees. What's the significance of the admin fees in relation to the honorarium?
Okay, so the admin fees are any time that a commissioner would do actual administration versus going to a meeting. And there's a separation that was set up before we came on board, that they would identify administration hours, because in the beginning, there was only one staff. And so commissioners were taking on a lot of administration. That's significantly gone down from previous, because in the past, the commissioners were actually going out, doing the inspections, doing the interviews, doing the license application, all of that. So that's the difference between administration and regular honorariums.
So is that gonna decrease further as you move forward in relation to
Absolutely.
having full-time staff now?
Absolutely.
Cynthia? Any other questions, comments? Oh, go ahead, Helen.
So the yearly fees are based on, you got 9 retailers and 7 producers, so they're gonna be paying yearly fees, right? How are you gonna monitor how much money they're making? If they can't produce bank records. So how are you gonna monitor how much money they're making? Say for example, what's the yearly fee they gotta pay? Is it 5% or 8%?
It's not a yearly fee. It is a yearly fee. I should go back. We're going to have to work on that. That's an area that we're working on closely. We had a setup, but it's not working right. So we're looking at going back to fine tune that. And I think as we go on and as we get bigger, that's only gonna, we're gonna have to tweak it to make sure that it meets our needs, as well as it's easier for producers and retailers to be able to give us that information. So it'll be something that we'll continue to work on with the producers to ensure that everybody's of the same understanding.
Okay, any other questions, comments? Yep, go ahead, Dale.
Just in relation to your donation expense, historically it was around 22 and now you're up to 88. Which warrants that increase in your donation?
So the community contributions, are you referring to them?
No, it's under your administrative expense line item there, and it says, donations, it says.
Okay, so that is our community contributions. So that's what we give back to the community. So in 24, that was, I think it was a little bit more than that. But in any case, our goal for this year is to go up to 88,710. That's what we want to give back, because the more producers we have on board, the more community contributions. And so that's our goal. I'd like to have even more than that, mind you, but that's what we settled on.
Follow-up, go ahead.
So is it just essentially come back to council, or where does it go specifically?
Actually, it goes right to, we have a community contributions booklet that was provided, I believe to the previous council. I can bring that next time I report. And it's in the summertime, we put out a call out to all organizations that reside in the Six Nations community and ask them what they would like. They have to fill in an application, we go through that, and they're all put into a booklet. It's all, they have until the end of the year, we put it all in a booklet, and then that's what we use for the following year. So we have a booklet for 2024. They're gonna start working in the summertime, and then we'll have a list for the following year. And we'll do that every year. And then as we go on, we're learning that there's some places, because we want to make sure, one, that people are going knowingly, they know that it's coming from the revenue of cannabis products. And so that we wanted people to, if they're going to accept money, that this is as a result of that, so. But I'll bring it with the next quarterly report.
Hazel and Cynthia.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment with regard to the presentation of this particular audit in terms of comparison to other audits. I think the predicament of having to do everything by cash, you can't even use a bank. And then the government is the one who initiated this predicament that we are in, wanting for the Six Nations to want to control the cannabis industry on reserve here. I think as a counselor, I still feel confused as to why the government views us as, what do they view us as, Kathy?
That we're doing money laundering and that we're criminals.
See, we're performing what they authorized, and at the same time, they're turning it around and making us to be criminals. When we know we're not criminals. And the fact that this council, I know we talk about this over and over, but I think moving forward, we always need to be proactive. We as a council need to go to the government and tell them, we're doing what you had approved and authorized. Now you've done a flip on us and trying to, it's just sad. I can't imagine that you have to do everything in cash. Talk about kicking Six Nations in the rear end. That's how I see it. Thank you.
Cynthia?
Yeah, that, I was looking at the donations, and I see Six Nations admin fee and interest expense. Is there anywhere on there where it has the, payments for the loan? And I realize a big bulk of it is donations because it's, non-profit, registered as non-profit. But is there, I couldn't see it, any of the payback other than the, interest expense, or is that, you're at a point where you can't pay anything beyond the interest? Is that what that, why it's that way?
Good morning. So the payments back to the loan wouldn't show on that because that's an income statement, so it's a statement of operations. And repayments would come onto the balance sheet, which that's not budgeted for you. So essentially, if there was a profit at the bottom of the budget, then that would be applicable to a repayment. However, because it's in a loss position, it just means that the deficit is going to continue. Now, when they receive their retailer money, it goes in as a repayment. However, their expenses then exceed their repayments. So essentially, it's a net non-repayment, if that makes sense. Does that answer your question? Thank you.
Elena?
You mentioned, Kathy, that the, excuse me, the honorary expenses, sorry, you have the commissioners admin fees. So on the financial statements, honorariums for 2023 were $83,675. But what you have budgeted here for honorariums for 2025 is only $29,340. And what looks to be what the honorariums are in on the admin fees line, $81,469. Are you projecting that with an additional 1 or 2 employees that the commissioners are going to be doing more work?
No, the opposite.
So why is it in admin fees?
For the operational,
Yeah.
for 2025?
Yeah.
Is 4,900. And travel expense, no, sorry, for meetings, 29,340.
It says commissioners admin fees, $81,496.
Am I looking at a different one?
It's under operation expenses, and it's the second from the last one under that.
It's 47,000.
Right above insurance.
81,000. So that would be, yeah. I'm not sure how we come up with that. I'd have to double check that, because I didn't think that, I thought that, well, I'll have to check back and get back to you, like, because my whole, as long as we have more staff, the admin fees would go down for our commissioners.
Well, the admin
So-
fees were never that high, right?
You're correct. Is that 47,000?
Yeah, just
Yeah.
sort that out. Thank you.
Helen?
Yeah, I was looking at that too. I guess my question is, so a commissioner gets a commissioner fee, plus they get honoraria for the same meeting.
No.
When do they get their commissioner fees then?
So a commissioner would get $150 for a meeting.
Yeah.
If they're doing administration, they don't get that $150. It's one or the
So
other.
if they're doing administration, they get paid hourly or,
It's an hourly rate, yes.
but they don't get the honoraria?
No, it's one or the other.
Okay, is there any other questions? Oh, yeah, go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, I just want to on the cannabis revenue share, what's the basis of that projection based on? Is that a percentage from the retailers or outlets?
Yes.
So you projected 104, you only got 56. Now you're projecting 224.
I'm optimistic.
Okay. Can I have a mover to accept the Cannabis Commission's A1 and A2 as information?
Can I add,
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
can I just add that we'll get the updated correct information? Still follow?
Yep, we can add that to it.
It's prorated.
Oh, it's prorated.
Yeah, it's prorated based on the actuals that we had seen occur for next year. So we took this year's amount and divided it by the number of months that had gone and then multiplied by 12, and that's where it's going from the, so you see this year it's 60,000 in actuals.
Jennifer, are you talking about the retail share? What are you?
No, I'm talking about, I was talking about for the commissioner admin fees, the ones that you were asking why it had increased. The year prior, I think it was $40,000. Sorry, I just gotta.
I'm concerned why they're 81,000 to begin with, because there's projected to be 2 additional employees or 1 additional employee. And why would the commissioners be doing admin work if there's additional employees?
Yes, and I'm just telling you where the math came from for how it was projected.
So we can accept, I'm just saying, I would like that explanation to come back.
Right.
That's,
So she-
Go add it to the resolution, just for that information, to come back. Yep,
Next time.
next time I come back, yep. Is there a mover? Oh, yep, can I have a mover, and then we'll ask before we accept it. Is there a mover? Cynthia, Elena, questions? Dale,
Yeah,
Helen?
again, just on that line item, I know that you're making a projection there for your 24-25 budget, but then it's another line item you got there is, if you had your own bank account, the revenue changes from 339 to 847, which justifies that, just because of the bank account.
We would have more people on board if we had a bank account.
Yeah, that's under the revenue, that's what I'm reading there. It's almost like what, over 400,000 increase in revenue just because of having a separate bank account.
There's many producers and retailers, cultivators on this First Nations that's the sticking point from them coming. That's a major sticking point from them joining us, is that a bank account. We're associated with Six Nations Elected Council is another one. And that, we have a big meeting coming up this next week that we're gonna be talking with people who wanna come on board, but that bank account is a huge sticking point. And that's not just for us, that's for anybody who has a cannabis business on the territory.
Helen?
No, I was gonna just say, we're not gonna accept this as information, we're accepting their audit. So, it's not just information.
Okay, so let's move back to the, we're gonna accept the cannabis audit, and I have to do one at a time. So 1A is the audit financial statements, the audit findings, and the management letter. Is that okay with, Cynthia and Elena? We have to move it first.
I thought we were looking at the budget, I thought that's what we were moving.
I have to move the first one first. And then
I
the
know,
next one.
I'm just saying, when I moved, it was for the budget.
Okay, so, is there movers
Accept the audit?
to accept the audit? Cannabis audit. Helen? Hazel? All in favor? Anybody opposed? See none, carried. Now to accept the 2024-2025 budget. Is there a mover? Moved by Cynthia. Second by Elena. All in favor? Anybody opposed? See none, carried. Thank you. Yeah, have a great day.
Thank you.
So number 4, adoption of general council minutes for March 18th. There's no questions. Moved by Dale, second by Carrie. All in favor? Anybody opposed? See none. Carried. Number 5, animal wellness request for funding. Yep, go ahead, Cynthia.
Yeah, just a question. I think I remember correctly, this was the health, that came from the health budget. And when we were looking at the financials, it seemed there were 800 and some thousand in the red, but it was explained to us, it couldn't show as our revenue until it was recognized as a surplus a year later, so it would come into this next fiscal, as I understand it. But it says on here, due to shifting priorities and budget constraints. I wonder if somebody could explain that. There's almost like $1 million, because I'm understanding the surplus coming into this fiscal.
So Jeff, unless you can answer also, they're coming in right now, but.
So in the budget for this year, when we're looking at animal control specifically, they had things that were allocated to cover that budget in their budget working papers. So the $800,000 that you're speaking of the deficit, did not include the animal control costs at that time because in the budget it was fully covered. And I think that Alyssa and Kelly are going to be speaking to some of the challenges that they've had this fiscal, and be able to better explain why they're coming and asking for this.
Okay, come on up.
Good morning.
Wendy.
Hi. Good morning. Today, so we're going to Kelly
Can you,
Gordon.
push the button? There you go.
Kelly Gordon, I'm one of the portfolio leads at Health Services.
Sayla Bagel, Alyssa Smith-Yanjet. I'm the program supervisor for community health and wellness under Six Nations Health Services, and one of the programs that I oversee is animal wellness.
Okay, the floor is yours.
Good morning. What I'd like to do is just do a quick overview of the program in general, and interrupt me if I'm going on too long. So, this program employs 3 people. They are community members. We have 2 different locations. One rental location for the office, and then a kennel housed at the landfill site. Some of the things that we do for community is a wellness spay-neuter clinic. As you know, we just had a sign up, so we're getting probably about 500 community members and animals on the territory with their vaccines and shots. One thing I wanted to mention was just in the 2019 community plan, the animal wellness program was mentioned as a medium-term goal. So which means between 2025 and 2029, some other community goals were that we would have a new facility built, and then also we would kind of transition from a reactionary program to more of a proactive program. So how can we support community members in a better way? Some of the ways that health supports this program are playing my role as a supervisor, and also with admin, and then also when we have larger events, having some team support. So when we have big signups and having a lot of additional staff come in. So we have a lot of donors for this program. If we didn't, the deficit would be enormous. So we have Grand River Vet who helps take care of those wellness. They do all that at cost. Any of the spay and neuters, they also do that at cost. And then we have an organization called Cannon's Cause. So what they do is any animal that we pick up that's injured and needs medical attention, we take it to the vet, and that organization pays for those animals to be repaired physically and then returned to us. And then we also have, in the event of an animal needing euthanization, Gateway Crematorium pays for those, and we've never been charged for those services. So some of the new projects that we're working on right now is a vet tech pilot project, which started in January. And so when an animal comes in, we can now give them a parvo vaccine. We can do some of the wellness before transitioning out to our partners. And then we also have a donation of a washer and dryer for our kennel. So there's a lot of really great things happening with that pilot project that are very new to this program. I just wanted to share a couple quick success stories. We picked up a mom dog and successfully birthed her puppies over the weekend, and then they were transferred out for adoption. So beautiful things like this happen all the time. And then just another cute story was the kind of reality star Steve-O. He adopted one of our dogs, one of our res dogs who was sent to Toronto, and then he adopted them. So he was like taking it on tour and kind of wanting the history of it. So this year you may have seen we've experienced a lot of vandalism at our kennel site. So just ongoing malicious, escalating vandalism. So that's, you know, taken a huge toll on everyone's mental health and also just, of course, financials. And then for the future, so we'd like to grow the program, have more staff, and then we also need a new building. And we're kind of at a phase where we're in the works for that, and I'm sure we'll be talking about that again this year, is getting that building.
And I can add just a bit about the financials. So there's 3 full-time staff employed by this program. So roughly with the 3 staff, so 2 animal control officers and a project manager, roughly around $200,000 for that. And then the additional ask for the 23-24 fiscal year was $290,000, so the additional operational costs of the program. So we have 2 program trucks. As Alyssa said, we've incurred a lot of vandalism. We've had to do a lot of quick solutions, quick fixes. We've implemented security, so a lot of those came at cost over the last year.
And then the hope is to grow and expand the program. So, you know, with the need, like how many calls per month are we getting just in the community for loose dogs, stray dogs?
Hundreds, and just this past January, we had a targeted high of calls, so the most calls ever just in the month of January, and each month since then they've been consistently escalating, so it's an ongoing issue and need.
And I think, how do we expand the service beyond 8:30 to 4:30? We know these things don't happen just during business hours, so we do have some support after hours, but we don't have an on-call system in place or the staffing to support. We are working closely with Six Nations Police, which have been really great in you know, situations outside of our council working hours. But part of the goal is to look at how we can expand service. So in the past, this program, so we started overseeing it back in 2021. Prior to that, pre-COVID, it was funded through OFNLP dollars. And when COVID hit, OFNLP dollars became less available. So fortunately, we were able to support the program using COVID surplus dollars within health services within the organization. And now we're at a point where there's no more surplus dollars. We're not sure if OFNLP is the best course of action, and that's why we're putting forward, is there an opportunity to seek Six Nations community trust dollars, economic development trust dollars to support past years, so 23-24, and then ongoing years to the cost of $350,000 annually. So I hope Alyssa gave you a little overview of the program. I think many of you are familiar, if not have accessed the program as community members, and then just looking to see how we can ensure more sustainable funding for the team, and also look to then have opportunities to grow and expand to meet community needs. And really happy to note, as Alyssa said, it is part of our Six Nations community plan. So we'll leave it at that, and then I see there's some questions.
Go ahead, Cynthia.
Yeah, well, thanks for your work in the animal wellness. It's a really, really, really needed program, so I'm not questioning that at all. And pet wellness, that's very, very, very important. They had to sign up for the disabled and elderly. That was good. I was there. But it costs an astronomical amount that you have to just go to the vet. And I think there was $45. So I'm not questioning that at all. But what is the, it said got a history there. It was OFNLP during COVID. Those dollars weren't available, that it went over into health. But looking at the audits I've been looking at for the last few years, it seems health has had a surplus, like ongoing, year to year. And again, I won't repeat what I just said about the deficit being covered by that surplus recognized this year. But it speaks to shifting priorities and budget constraints. I wonder if you can explain or clarify to us what the shifted priority is. What is that represented by?
Can you read the sentence? Just that's
Yeah, it said, however, we'll read the first part. However, due to shifting priorities and budget constraints, continued funding is no longer feasible. It says health did it for the past 3 years.
I believe that was speaking about within health, so because our surplus that we were using health to cover the program over the last years, that is no more, and so we're looking for a way to move forward with this program with solid funding for the future.
Right. No, I recognize that. I'm just wondering what does it represent within health?
So the shifting priorities, I think, is the priority away from the COVID spends. So to me, that's when we wrote the briefing note. It was around the priority moving from the COVID funds that were allocated and now have been spent, and we're moving on to different priorities for that one. And then within our cost centers that we support within the community health and wellness portfolio, we are quite limited there's not a lot of surplus. So I could go back and speak to health finance around the global health budget to see, but to our knowledge, within our programs that we support in our portfolio, there's not the additional $300,000 plus to be able to support the animal wellness program. Just to follow.
Go ahead.
And I don't know if you're able to explain, maybe Jennifer, that it suggests that the, used to be OFNLP, then those funds for whatever reason during COVID weren't available, then health because you had other dollars that you would have used, COVID dollars. Now that's all done and over with, if I'm following this correctly. So the suggestion was now then, given the state of affairs, the funds come from the Grand River Economic Development Trust. I wonder if maybe Jennifer, you can explain again. I didn't know we, council, had a economic development trust. I'm aware the Six Nations Economic Development Corporation, because we heard there's this management letter and there's a 50-50 and then a 10% goes into this trust. But I understood when that was presented, it was that DevCorp trust. Do we have a separate one?
Thank you, Councillor. It is very confusing because we use the same words over and over again for this. And we're trying to get the language down ourselves so that we know exactly what we're speaking to. But what the source of funds is being referred to now is that money from the management agreement with the Six Nations Development Corporation. And it used to go into the community trust, and then the departments would apply to the community trust. However, since the new management agreement, now that it's split, now those funds are sitting with us to be distributed.
What would be a better term, just because it's going to be in history now if this motion goes through, what might be a better term to describe it?
I'm entirely open to suggestions for that. Because every time we speak of this, it does become confusing. Are we talking about the community trust? Are we talking about the economic development fund? Are we talking about, right? So having a name for that, I think, is something that when we were going to meet and plan to spend, that we could also come up with a name to solidify exactly what we're talking about.
Cynthia?
Okay. You've confirmed it is that, is it properly the income as a result of the 23-24 management agreement?
Yes.
Maybe call it that then, just so we can distinguish and not get our people in finance confused. Maybe would that be proper then, the income from the Six Nations DevCorp management agreement?
Yes.
For that year? Okay.
Elena, Audrey, then Dale. Audrey?
Just two things. One is with the health that you're talking about, where was health paying admin fees at that time? And with their excess surplus that they had, that they could cover that, taking care of the dogs and animals under reserve. That's my first question. And the second question is, what is the process for stray dogs? Last night, my dog at about 11 o'clock was attacked by another dog in front of our house. So what's the process for the reserve? You know,
Audrey, I can speak to the admin fees. So, to my knowledge, when it was funded through OFNLP, that predates when health was paying the administration fees to council. And then in recent, the dollars that would have come out of the health administration budget that were allocated for COVID, those would have, the health administration budget does pay administration fees. So I don't know if I'm reading into your question around if we're paying administration fees out of health budgets, would that allow potentially some of that money to be reallocated to support this request? Possibly, but I think we all know the administration fees that are coming from health are supporting many of the growth and development within council, right? So I think that would be a question that would have to come back to central finance if that was an opportunity, and I'm not sure if that's what you're asking, but I think, yes, in the past there were administration fees paid on some of the monies that were supporting, not some, on the monies that were supporting this program, but not when it was coming from OFNLP dollars.
to answer your question around the stray dogs, and I will preface this by saying this is a can of worms question, but I do appreciate it being asked here at this table. So as Kelly said, right now the program is only operational during business hours, and we all know that these stray dog attacks, these issues, these dog bites do not happen during business hours. So right now the only process that we have is you call into the office and get put on the list for a callback to come out, and then one of the animal wellness officers will support you in a way where it might be leaving a live cage at your home, it might be, you know, going to visit a neighbor to say, keep your dog locked up, please. And that's about the extent of our current authority. So, which brings the kind of bigger discussion is the bylaws. So that's one of the things I think that really needs to be reworked and put in place and enforceable with this program, because to be honest, it's like we say stray dogs, but stray dogs aren't really the problem. The problem are owned dogs who are running wild and doing the attacking, because a stray dog is kind of easy to do. If we pick it up, we keep it, we adopt it out. The dogs that are owned and who are not maybe taken care of the best are the ones that have the issue with, because the most we can do is like a friendly knock at the door and a letter left. Please take care of your dog, and that's about the extent. And as we know, those situations escalate with neighbors, family, friends. So that's the stray dog policy as of right now.
Dale, Elena, and Leslie. Go ahead, Dale.
Okay, a few things. I know in regards to that, we are looking in justice, we are looking at that bylaw to see what can be done, so we are having some discussions on that. A few things here in relation to what you're proposing here. Now, in regards to 23, 24, did health services budget anything for animal control?
So we did put forward a budget in our budget submissions, but we did indicate a kind of a question mark of where will this funding come from? So this isn't a conversation that we're just now, you know, end of March, and we're like, oh shoot, we ran a program and we don't have the money. Like, we've been talking about it all year in conversations, and I think with the transitions that have gone on within health and new leadership incoming, it's kind of been pushed within other priorities. So we did put a budget forward of $250,000, I believe was the budget for 23-24. A little bit under the 290 is where we're spent. And then we did put forward when that budget was submitted, saying we need to figure out how we're going to support this. So is it something that needs to come back to council for OFNLP? Is it something we have surplus dollars in health that can support it again? Is there still rollover money from COVID dollars? All of those things, as books closed, you know, last June, July. So yes, we did put a budget forward, but we did indicate we need to figure out how we're going to afford this program.
Yeah, because I think I know you got 2 resolutions there, and I mean, if health doesn't have the money, then yeah, you're looking to cover off from the animal, it actually doesn't really say, but you're looking for the Ontario First Nations. No, it's not that either. The economic development money which you're looking at. So I mean, in regards to the first resolution, I don't have a big concern with that resolution. However, the other one, going concern one, is one I would have, because you're looking to annualize something, and I think it would be prudent for council to wait till we have our session with Jennifer in relation to, because I know we're making motions to allocate money from different sources of money, and we haven't really looked at the overall pot yet. So I don't know, Chief, if you're looking for a mover on the first, therefore, I mean, I can move that up for the 290, if that's the actual expenses that you're indicating in relation to the operation of the animal control for 23-24 year.
Okay, Dale has a resolution. There's a resolution on the floor. Is there a seconder? Second by Helen.
I have a question.
Are you okay with that? Are you seconding it?
Yeah, I gotta have a comment.
Okay, second with a comment. Go ahead.
What was my comment? Oh, Suggestions Economic Development Trust Fund, so there's 2. Are we clear, this is the one that council looks after? This is not the Development Corporation?
Right. Internal.
That's all I wanted to make sure that it's not the Economic Development Corporation, it's Council of Economic Development Fund.
Okay, so I have Elena, Leslie, then Cynthia. Go ahead, Elena.
During your event days and, even with the 3 partners that you work with doing things at cost, I realize that the days are limited. Do you have any data on the members that cannot be helped? Like, do you keep track of the calls? Just so we know what the need
We
is.
do, we have monthly data that we collect, so we categorize the calls as they come in, and then we also do a monthly report, so that's information we can happily share, just so overall council can take a look at what's happening in the community. And then this year, as some of you know, with the wellness clinic, so it seemed like we've been missing our demographic, because the demographic for these wellness clinics are seniors, disabled, or low income community members. With that being said, it does cost $150 to walk through a door of a vet for any reason. So we changed a lot of the sign up, where we had the elders and disabled sign up first. That way to give our, core demographic pet owners, the opportunity to have these services first. And then we will do the same thing when it comes to the spay and neuter clinics, is just really trying to, and again, the need is so great that these clinics don't touch all the animals. And we did make a change to have only people who live on territory, just because we're trying to service all the pets here, but the need is so huge.
Thank you.
Leslie,
Yeah, I really appreciate that you brought that about the
can you
animals.
use your mic?
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. I'm thankful that you say here today, presenting about the animal and the animal wellness. Was, as Dale had spoken, the police did report that that's one of the biggest issues here in the village of Shweden is animal control. And in speaking with, in the health, one of the health meetings, it was identified that this animal wellness has been transient. It's never been fully adopted by any one of the programs here at Six Nations. So wellness, health and wellness is attempting now to give it a home and give it some legs, or whatever you want to call it. Okay, and I just have a couple of questions. I know that the shelter provides some animal food to community members that have hardships themselves, and it was pretty apparent during COVID times. So I didn't hear that who provides that food?
That food's from a variety of sources. So sometimes the program has to purchase it, but we often rely on donations. So some of our partners, say Sarnia, for example, will give us unlimited food. The problem is it's in Sarnia, so we have our staff kind of meet them halfway, and usually they'll take a dog or two, and then we'll pick up food. And then we have an ongoing list of kind of frequent flyers that we continue to support, mostly elders, that we support with the ongoing dog food donations. So that's one of the things that have taken a big hit with this recent vandalism, is for some reason that's the big target of the thefts, is this dog food. And we put a sign up that says, "This food is free, call us, we'll be happy." But that's been one of the biggest thefts. So they'll clean out all the donations we have, and then we have to try to solicit more donations, and that's where this Vet Tech pilot project has been really imperative for the program, because she's been reaching out to some of the bigger dog food companies and soliciting some ongoing donations, like on an ongoing basis.
Cynthia?
Sorry, just to add, I think so we're providing the dog food, but it's not done to the scale that we want to scale it up to. So as we can grow this, because right now I think it's a bit, if you know we provide it, you can access it. But do people know we provide it? So how do we do a better job at communicating out that this service is available? But on the back end, how do we ensure we have the supports in place for the need that comes in? Excuse me, sorry. So I think as we want to further and continue growing the program, with donations and some purchase food, so similar to how the Six Nations Food Bank operates, and then ensuring that, how do we ensure more equitable access and that people are aware of this service, because I think that's something that's needed.
A follow-up?
Okay, so on the trail, I just found out over the weekend as well, one of the little dogs that is actually attacking some of the people is on a short leash. It's owned by a 15-year-old girl, and it's not being fed. So it's creating that meanness and that that territorial behavior that we're seeing on the trail. I'll get that information to them about, to the girl, about how to improve, sustainability for
Yeah.
our animal.
And like I said earlier, the biggest issue are the owned animals in the community and not being able to enforce any bylaw, any reports. Many reports come into organizations' office of animal abuse, of animals not being cared for properly, and other than, we look at it from a perspective of approaching them. How can we support you? Do you need food? Do you need a doghouse? We had a bunch of doghouses donated. Those are one of the other things that were stolen during the vandalism is the doghouses. So we're trying to set up the program in a way where we have straw for dogs in winter. We have blankets and toys and things available to help alleviate some of these aggressive dogs, and sharing information. So what the vet tech is doing is creating resources that we are using in kennel, and then hopefully being able to expand in the community of what are the ways we can help these aggressive dogs be calmer. And eventually, once we get the new bill, we'd like to offer training, so people to come in and take these training courses with their animals. There was something else I wanted to say, but I can't remember what it was. Thanks.
Cynthia, then Hazel.
Nathan, a question for you. We are now April 15th, and as everyone is aware, we haven't even begun the 24-25 budget cycle. So in this cases such as this, is it that each department operate on a status quo and not undertake new initiatives until, just because everything's up in the air right now? But why I ask that is because I think it's a wonderful program, the pet wellness, so it's nothing to do with that. However, my concern lies in the fact we haven't done those budgets. And that concern we had, morning, remember I had done that summary of that Corn Ferry report, and have numerous concerns. Not necessarily to say we don't need these people or those people or all those new injection of folks. I would even have some question of that. But the bigger concern is the financial sustainability. I've taken a look and there is no financial sustainability, because we're looking at this year that the budget that we have is in a deficit, but without going on and on about that would, for that reason, I don't know if it's prudent for us to be approving this right now, just because we haven't underwent that budget cycle. But I would hate anything to happen to our little animal wellness program in the interim. So is it then, Nathan, sort of the status quo as long as it's not a new initiative for this year in terms of the continuation of the wellness program?
No, I think it might be a little bit more prudent to take that second whereas and fit that in with the budgetary process coming in May. And I think later on we're going to look at those dates. From the standpoint of also kind of incorporating this into the overall plan, because the one challenge that is been difficult is looking at it from the operational standpoint and telling that story. So the operational story is what I'm finding is difficult to track over the last few years. And when you have that difficult operational story that's difficult to track, it's also difficult to look at it from a financial piece. So those two things are pretty much, to me, go hand in hand. And what we want to do is, like Dale's suggesting as well, to take that second piece and start telling that story a little bit more accurately going into the budget cycle. So I think you're bang on.
And then for that name as suggested, I think it's even, because there's two whereases, so it's all
Can you use your mic?
Oh, sorry. There are two, therefore be it resolved, but it's all part and parcel of the same. Dale, you mentioned there were two, but it's two incorporated into one. So you're suggesting take out the B but leave the A? Oh, so you did already. Because I don't see two there. It's all together. They're all incorporated into one.
Yeah, just the first therefore is what I moved
Okay.
on, because it's last year now. So.
And also making the correction for the fund It's
fund.
it's
Allocation.
the income from the management agreement.
Okay, Hazel, then Helen.
Yeah, I just wanna ask about the, there was a previous bylaw, I'm sure it's still sitting there, just not happening. That there were certain dogs that were not allowed to be held on reserve here. And Dale, you just mentioned that you are discussing that injustice, because it was a bylaw.
It is.
Okay, so how do you enforce that bylaw on those dogs that are very aggressive and dangerous? Because personally, I have a very big concern about the neighbor. Like, they must be, well, they're breeding and raising these pit bulls. And they're pretty huge dogs, and they're on long leashes. And if you have little children outside, one day I went out and there's the dog right on our doorstep. One even came in our sunroom. Like, of course we're afraid of them. They're pit bulls because you can't trust them. So how do you control a dog that we all think is scary? How do you take care of the situation? Go ahead, Dale.
Yeah, that's some of the discussion we're having, and we're looking at legal issues of those in relation to doggy tags and how they are. So we are looking at the legal issues of it. And right now, the bylaw specifically states of those breeds that you made reference to should not be on Six Nations. So, and that's what kind of where it ends. It just says you should not have. So now we're gonna try and look further in relation to the legalities of it and the, I guess, the going concern of the tags and what can be done legally.
Yeah, thanks, I'm scared of those dogs.
Helen, Greg, Melva, and then we'll vote on resolution on the floor.
Yeah, mine was along the lines of what Cynthia was saying. Removing this the first therefore for $290,000 from the available economic development fund. I don't know if $290,000 is available from the economic development fund, because I don't know how much money we have in the economic development fund. Because we haven't looked at any of that stuff yet. So, is there $290,000 in the economic development fund to support this program? This one I don't know.
Thank you, Counselor. Yes, there is. So the monies that we received at the beginning of the fiscal year, there's only been one allocation out of that, and that was for the $60,000. So the remainder of the balance is available, which well exceeds $290,000.
Okay. Greg, then Melva.
Yeah, when we go through the management agreement, yeah, we'll clarify all those questions that you had. I went through a lot of the funding that health has, and yeah, you do scratch around to find funding to keep that going, and a lot of times there's no specific amount set aside. Well, there hasn't been because of, like you said, there's been a change in the higher up there. So I'll second it. I'll second the first part of that because I think that it is a need and we have to keep it going. We have to keep you guys funded. So and there's a lot more issues that actually we probably hear about. And I do commend you on your work there. So I'll second that.
It was already seconded by Helen.
Oh, okay.
Melva?
Yes, Dale has mentioned bylaws that are certainly being looked at, and Hazel has mentioned, the two species that have been outlawed and have a bylaw attached to it. And my question is, in the outreach efforts, I'm sure your workers have come across the species that are outlawed. Has there been data kept on that by the organization? Because that's really important. We want to know, who are these people perhaps, and how many are on the reserve. So we're talking about health of animals, and we're talking about the health and safety of our people. Thank you.
I agree, Melba. So there's two different ways that we keep the data. So when a bite occurs, an investigation happens, and on that report, it states what kind of animal, and like I said earlier, most of the bites reports that I've seen, they're owned animals, and it's not the first time biting, and they're actually not frequently pit bulls or those kind of aggressive breeds. And then the other piece is when we do the wellness clinics and stuff, we ask for the breed. So that's kind of a bigger way to capture what are the pets, what are the owned animal breeds in community. So we kind of track it in those two ways. So when the bites occur, and then also when an animal comes into the kennel, we track like what type of breed they are. So we do have that data available.
Thank you. Okay, so moved by Dale, second by Helen. The result, the Six Nations of Grand River Elected Council approved allocated $290,000 of available Six Nations of the Grand River Economic Development Trust funds towards the Animal Wellness Program for the 2023-2024 fiscal years. This allocation will ensure the continuation of the expansion of the essential services, including staff salaries, medical treatment, shelter support, and outreach efforts. All in favor? Anybody opposed? See none, carried. Okay, thank you, and we'll bring back the other one another time. Okay. Okay, number 6, the KPMG invoice. Who's speaking to that? Yeah, just a payment. Moved by Dale. Is there a seconder to that? Second by Greg. All in favor? Anybody opposed? See none, carried. Number 7 is comprehensive funding agreement, amendment number 150. Moved by Dale, is there a seconder? Second by Audrey.
I have a question.
With a question, go ahead.
Okay, when you go back to the defense, it says, the comprehensive funding that goes to the chief, like who determines that, and what are the criteria for what goes to the chief and CEO, and what goes to full council? I would like to see it in writing what the criteria is and who decides. Any answer there?
That's on the that's for discussion on the in-camera, on
Okay.
the agenda. All in favor? Anybody opposed? See none, carried. So number 8, Six Nations Natural Gas Financial Report. It's for information.
Are you going that?
No.
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, Jennifer, I don't know if you can answer or not, but we were told that one of the reasons for the delay in the last audit was the delay in the financial report from Six Nations Natural Gas. Do you have any idea what caused the delay, and are we gonna expect a similar delay for this audit?
Yes, that is correct. That was the major delay at closing out the audit, because the audit could not be completed until the audit was finished for natural gas. My understanding is they had an issue with their billing system, and it required extensive manual reconciliations to validate the numbers to the extent where the auditors were comfortable with their information. So that was significant delays. My understanding is that that has been resolved for this fiscal year, so we would not anticipate further delays from that this year.
Can I have a mover to accept just as information? The Six Nations Natural Gas Financial Report. Moved by Cynthia, second by Carrie. All in favor? Anybody opposed? See none, carried. Number 9, from the Community Committee. Go ahead, Dean.
So, like I had said, community committee issue is going to be moved to the in-camera. But this is actually just under scheduling for myself. So I received an email about the 10th annual National Indigenous Physical Activity and Wellness Conference on May 15th to 16th in Winnipeg. So I received this email and I was going to request council if you would send myself as a representative to attend this conference. It does quick from the email here. Basically, it's for First Nations. This conference is created for First Nations people who have an interest in sports, recreation, fitness, who may be bank council members, health directors, health practitioners, so on and so on. So I'm putting a request if council would like to send myself as a representative to attend.
And where is it? In Toronto?
Winnipeg.
In Winnipeg. That's the May 6th, 15th and 16th? Is there a mover? Moved by Melba, second by Audrey. All in favor? Anybody opposed? See none, carried. And under scheduling, we have April 22nd to the 23rd, First Nations Major Projects Coalition Conference in Toronto. Is there anybody interested in that, in going to that? Look like for built environment or wealth and economy?
I think we should see it in white.
Well, when I looked at it, I thought it was more economic development, that's what I was thinking, right?
So I thought. Anybody from? Go ahead.
I'll volunteer if anybody.
Okay, for,
Just, when you register, just know that we can negotiate the complimentary rate for leaders to go. Usually a fee, but we negotiate a complimentary rate.
okay, a mover for Greg to attend. Elena, second by Melba, all in favor? Anybody opposed? See none, carried. And there's no additions, so a motion to adjourn, moved by Carrie, second by Cynthia, all in favor? Opposed? Go to camera. Thank you for joining us today. Have a great day.